Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Dukes Daily. Glad to have you along today. And today is Tuesday, and we all know what we do on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It is the top 10 Tuesdays and Thursdays. And today we are going to continue our theme of top 10 NHL things for the month of October, seeing as the National Hockey League got started last week. So, kind of a celebration of the hockey season beginning. We're going to keep our top 10 to, hockey related things. So the other day we did the top 10 defensemen, which went over pretty good. Good friend of mine, Mike Link, who likes to watch and follow along with the Sunday Night Sports guys. He kind of made the point with me that Scott Niedermayer should have been on that list. And I can't disagree with him. I actually had Scott Niedermayer written down as a consideration for it, but I took other things into consideration, and not that he couldn't be on that list. I'm sure amongst poll writers and people, beat writers of the National Hockey League, people who follow it a lot closer than I do, I'm pretty sure Scott Niedermayer would have been on the top 10, probably top 5, and even Mike seems to think top 3 defensemen of all time. So what I've done is I'm just kind of taking it based on what I see, my own eye test, the players that have kind of stood out to me in the time that I've watched hockey. Obviously, with defensemen, Orr would have been the greatest, but I never got to see Orr. So it's all based on people I see. Okay, so this week we're going to do the top 10 NHL left wingers, like within my time frame. And this was a little more challenging. And there, again, this is just my list, my personal one, that people that I kind of enjoyed watching. Not that some of the others weren't, but when you're cutting it down to 10, there's a lot of times you have different reasonings behind it. So let's get into it and see how it shapes up for some of you who may want to try this yourself. We welcome all comments and opinions, because that's all a top 10 thing is. It's an opinion, right? So actually, I want to start with an honorable mention to a guy who isn't your typical scorer, but was very instrumental. If everybody can see that. Yes, we can. Esa Tikkanen. He played for as we all know, for the Edmonton Oilers, part of 4 Stanley Cups with the Oilers. And he also won a Stanley Cup with the New York Rangers. I'm going to have to look back. I don't know if Esa was with the Oilers when they won the cup without Gretzky. I'm not sure if he was there then or not. If that's the case, then the win in New York would have made 6 for him. But Tikkanen, why I would have him honorable mention, and he could maybe jump in here and replace a few other people, is it was the defensive style of play. And though he never ever won a Frank Selke trophy, I think at the time when he was playing with the Oilers, Bob Gainey was still very prominent in winning the Selke trophy. A few other people, Butch Goring, I think, might have been in on that. I'd have to kind of look back on the list of Frank Selke winners, but Frank Selke is for the best defensive forward, right? And Tikkanen always did a great job, and he often would play with Gretzky and Curry. That didn't hurt his scoring records and things like that, but he was a physical presence. And for me, I've always been partial to hockey players who play with a physical presence. Hasn't got to be a fighter, though I have no qualms with fights in hockey. That's how I grew up watching the game locally and everything like that. But Tikkanen was tough finish guy, a guy you wanted on your team. And I have no doubt, they talk about that Oilers team, and any team that's a dynasty, you'll point to the stars, the ones that get all the goals and stuff. But I'll tell you what, guys like this, they create a lot of opportunity. They create space so that your skilled players can do what they have to do. So Tika's here. Like I said, he could be in the top 10. I really considered him for it, but we'll see. So the first one I'm going to go with at number 10 is John Tonelli. And Tonelli was one of the guys of the New York Islander dynasty back in the early 80s that kind of didn't get the heroics that, like Brian Trottier, Mike Bossy, Dennis Potvin, even Clark Gillies and Nystrom, some of them guys. Butch Goring seemed to get talked about a bit more, but Tonelli was pretty balanced. And I just got to kind of shift my screen here a little bit. No, that's good there. And I'm just seeing if I can find Tonelli, if he's here in the top 50. John Tonelli, yeah, number 25. Played with five teams: the Islanders, Calgary, the Kings, Quebec, and Chicago. And he was 25th all time with the as a scorer as a left wing. And 4 Stanley Cups for Tonelli. I can't remember if he played on Team Canada at any point in time. I would have to look at that. The source that I had didn't have all the awards that guys had won and all their accomplishments. The one I had before with the defenseman was awesome. I wish I could find that again. I probably should go into the archives and try to have it for, on Thursday when we do the right wingers and that. But John Tonelli, 4-time Stanley Cup champion. Really hard to not have him on there because he was a guy in my time of watching hockey who had quite an impact. At number 9 is a little bit different one. Is Charlie Simmer. And Charlie was part of the Triple Crown line. And if you'll remember the Triple Crown line, where is Charlie? Charlie, I'm probably going up too high. Charlie was part of the Triple Crown line. He was 43rd overall as a left winger as of today. And won the Bill Masterton Trophy when he was in Boston, and part of the Triple Crown line with Marcel Dion and Dave Taylor, and they were an infamous line who just really clicked for like 3 or 4 seasons, and he was always a guy that kind of a Phil Esposito type guy around the net in the garbage type goals and stuff like that, but he was a guy that always impressed me. As a winger and playing with a great talent like Dion at the time, really helped to make that solidify that line in Los Angeles. Number 8, and this will be a good one for all of our Toronto fans. I kind of had to go with Wendell Clark. And again, to me, it's not all about skill. There's different tangibles that come into play with players. And for me, what makes up my top 10 and Wendell Clark, kind of like Tikkanen, only this guy could throw him down. He was, he could handle himself in a fight. He could get his dukes going. He was okay. And thing about Clark, he played for 6 different teams. Never won no Stanley Cups. Never won any awards. But Clark was always an entertaining guy to watch. And it's a shame that he never got a crack at a Stanley Cup with Toronto, because he was definitely. He was the Dougie Gilmour kind of thing of his time. The Matt Sundin. He was the star player in Toronto for a number of years. And not everybody can play in Toronto and have success. It's a tough place to play. It's like the Yankees and Red Sox in baseball, Montreal in hockey. Those are hard places to play, and it takes special people to have the personalities to play there. So Wendell Clark at number 8. This guy here I had to have him on my list somewhere because he brought me great joy many times when I was a youngster and when I was a Montreal Canadiens fan, and that is Steve Shutt. And some people might think he should be higher. Some might think he shouldn't even be on the list. But Shutty was, where was he? He was 28th overall, and actually played some time with the Los Angeles Kings. Shutt did, as well as with Montreal. 5-time Stanley Cup champion, multiple All-Stars, and also played on Team Canada. And I'm sure the other guys that we've mentioned so far, Clark, Simmer, Tonelli, Tikkanen, they all had All-Star appearances as well. Now, the unique thing about left wingers that I didn't realize as I was kind of researching it a little bit, did you know that only 13 guys that have played the left wing position ever amassed over 1,000 points? Only 13. That's kind of interesting when you think about it. Paul Kariya is at 989, Kirk Muller 959, and Gary Roberts 910. So 16 even that have over 900 career points or more. So Steve Shutt, definitely part of the big line back in the day when the Canadians won the Stanley Cup 4 in a row. Some thinking that maybe that was the greatest team of all time. Definitely is in the argument for that. Schutt, Lafleur, Lemaire. I mean, they were the line of the day. They were the Gretzky, Curry, Tikkanen, if we will, Semenko, whatever you want to call it, of that era. Definitely dangerous. Definitely fun to watch. And Schutt was always kind of the guy off to the side that did his thing. Lafleur was the real superstar amongst that line. And but you know what? Without Schutt, I don't think he would have had the success that he had either. So they definitely complemented each other. Number 6 is Michel Goulet. And you have to have watched hockey years ago to know that Michel Goulet played for the Quebec Nordique. The Quebec Nordique, we need to bring the Nordique back to the NHL. They would be great in the Eastern Conference, right? I would much rather see the Quebec Nordique than the Florida Panthers, to be honest with you. I mean, the Nordique, when he was with them, I was a Montreal fan also at the time. And what a rivalry that was. What was his name? Was it Michel Bergeron? Was he the coach? Michel Bergeron. Yeah, he was the coach. Petit Tigre, I think they called him, the little tiger. And Dan Bouchard and the Nordiques had a great team with the Stastnys. And, Goulet was no slouch himself. Actually, he's 7th all time, playing with only Quebec and Chicago. Goulet, I do believe, played with Team Canada back in 87, perhaps 91. I'm not sure exactly, maybe 80. But I do remember Goulet playing. So classy guy, gritty guy, had a real good touch around the net. 548 goals, to be exact, for his career for Michel Goulet. At number 5, and I kind of paused on this one, but I thought, you know what? The guy was good. And he was the guy that kind of spurred the whole Mighty Ducks thing in Anaheim, Paul Kariya. So Paul Kariya definitely was he played on Team Canada, played on the Olympic team. I think they went to Nagano and that with Gretzky and all of them. And, I think for Kariya, having played in Anaheim, kind of took away some of the pizzazz that he should have got, some of the notoriety, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Just a steady player, 2-time Lady Byng trophy winner, and number 4 all time. No, why do I have him down as number 14? 14 all time, and he also played for Anaheim, Colorado, Nashville, and St. Louis. Funny how some of these guys got around more than I remember in that. Number 4, we're getting into the nitty-gritty, and this guy here, for a long time, was the top left winger of all time, but he has dropped, and that is one Bob Gainey. And Gainey, as I mentioned, he was the big Frank Selke trophy winner in those days, even when Tikkanen was kind of starting out with the Oilers when they first came over to the NHL. Bob Gainey at one point was considered by the Russians. They came out and said he is the best two-way hockey player in the world. That's how much respect Bob Gainey has. He also won a Conn Smythe Trophy in 78-79. Can you imagine being a defensive specialist and being a Conn Smythe Trophy winner? I mean, just that goes to show you with Schutt, Lafleur, Lemaire, Robinson, who else? LaRouche. I mean, they just had a great team. And, they couldn't have done it without Gainey shutting down the opposition. I know they put him on Rick Middleton with the Bruins at the time, and he would just shut him right down. Another guy I think gets kind of mentioned in that as a sideline story is Don Marcotte. Marcotte was very similar to Gainey, but he couldn't skate as good as Gainey was. He was a good shutdown guy too, but Gainey in his day, he could skate. 5-time Stanley Cup champion, 4 Frank Selkes, and again, Conn Smythe Trophy winner. At number 3, I went with Luc Robitaille. Oh, Lukey Luke. And, of course, Robitaille spent many years with the Los Angeles Kings, but he also played with the Pittsburgh Penguins, the New York Rangers, and finally with the Detroit Red Wings. Robitaille won his first and only Stanley Cup. Calder Trophy winner and number one all-time in points for a left winger. So, kind of like how Ray Bourque he actually got traded to Colorado with the hopes of trying to win a cup, and it worked out for Ray. Eventually, Luke winds up in Detroit, and I'm sure he wished he could have done this in Los Angeles, but it wasn't to be. But it's good to see that one of the great players of all time was able to be a Stanley Cup winner. And so Luke hits at number 3, even though he is the leading scorer of all time. Number 2 for me was Brendan Shanahan. And Shanahan to me was he was the center version on left wing of Steve Yzerman, is the best way I can kind of put it to you. Not that he was Yzerman or Yzerman was Shanahan, but you know what I'm saying. They were great players. They put up great numbers, but they were in the shadows of other people who played at that particular time. And Shanahan, what's the deal on him? Well, 3 Stanley Cups, All-Star as well, Team Canada, New Jersey, New York Rangers, St. Louis, Hartford, and with Detroit. He won a cup as well. Or no, he didn't win a cup with Detroit, I don't think. No, he won those with the Devils. So Shanny, as we know, he is the president of the Toronto Maple Leafs right now, part of trying to put that together back in his hometown, and trying to accomplish something with the Leafs that he was able to do as a Devil, as a player. And you know what? He has a lot of respect. And Shanahan manages or runs his team, runs the Toronto Maple Leafs, much like how he was as a player. No nonsense. Definitely no nonsense. So that he is number 2. And number 1, and actually I'll tell you what, it's not even going to be close someday. And this guy actually could be in the argument for greatest player of all time. There's no doubt about it. There can be a case made that this guy from the Washington Capitals, Alex Ovechkin. I mean, what do you say about Ovechkin? Well, I'm going to say it. Stanley Cup champion, Art Ross, winning the scoring championship, 3-time Hart Trophy winner, Conn Smythe Trophy winner for that Stanley Cup win that they had 2 years ago, Calder Trophy winner, All-Star, 5th all-time in scoring, and he sits currently at 182 points behind Luc Robitaille, with only Andreychuk, Shanahan, Johnny Bucyk, these guys are all retired. And I'm sure, Ovechkin has at least another good 3 years left into him, that if he averages 70 points a season, even so. Getting older, he is going to slow down at some point, but I think he still looks good enough that, we can bank on a good 70 to 90 points, for the next 3 years. So I fully expect Ovechkin is going to be, barring no injuries and things like that, he's going to become the all-time leading left winger, scoring left winger in the National Hockey League. And so anyhow, those are my top 10 with an honorable mention. Some other guys who could have possibly been on the list if you're going strictly off of scoring. I didn't put down Bobby Hull, Johnny Bucyk, because like I said, those were guys I didn't see a whole lot of. Bucyk, very little. But Dave Andreychuk, 4th in scoring. Keith Tkachuk, which was a surprise to me that he was 9th. Ray Whitney, Daniel Sedin, Brian Bellows. Brian Propp was an interesting one with the Flyers. I kind of thought kind of considered him a little bit. Kirk Muller, another guy. Muller was kind of a Brendan Shanahan type player, I would say, put him in that league. Bill Barber, tough to leave Bill Barber off of this, but I didn't see a load of Barber. I see, those years when Montreal was winning the Cup. Philly was still tough. See a bit of him there. Marcus Naslund. Who else? Moving down. Kovalchuk, possibility. Let's see. Rick Nash. was hard to leave Nash off of that list. Definitely a case can be made for him. 29th all time. Danny Heatley. There's a guy there. If he'd been a little more settled when he was younger, who knows? Maybe a Stanley Cup, bit better numbers. Some other names: Kevin Stevens, Scott Hartnell, Richard Martin of the French Connection, Gilbert Perreault, René Robert, and Rich Martin. I mean, that was a heck of a line back in the mid '70s. So some names there that definitely could have been on there, but the left wing position, tell you, it's not if you want to make a good living, become a real good left winger, right? If you got a good left-handed shot, man, that's like a left-handed pitcher in baseball. There's a place for you and a place to make some really, really big money. So let me just kind of turn back here. So anyway, guys, this is my list, for better or for worse. It was fun kind of putting it together. And like I said, if you want to comment in the comments, share your top 10 with me, critique this, say, I wouldn't have so-and-so in here, I'd have here, like Mike did with me here last week with the defenseman. It's just good fun. And it's that time of the year. We're into the hockey season now, so just kind of doing these things to kind of amp up the atmosphere and really, really get into it and things like that. So anyway, you gotta like the hat. Ain't that something? Got that as a birthday present years ago. I just found it today. So old style Pittsburgh Pirates. Remember them hats with the stars, Stargell stars, something like that. So that in my sports net. Hey, man. Hey. Never say no to a hockey pool. You never know. That come with $1,000 check, believe it or not. So anyway, yes, it is, Michael. It definitely is. And Michael Keevan, thank you so much for following us. We really appreciate your support. Michael's pretty regular. He comments pretty well on all of our videos and that. I think he lives in the Boston area or somewhere there, or he's a big Boston fan nonetheless. So he's always making some comments where our Boston content and things are. So anyway, that's my list. Reminder that at the top of the hour is going to be the Sunday Night Sports Guys, our Tuesday night show. And we're going to discuss Week 5 of the National Hockey of the NFL. Excuse me, MLB. We'll take a look at these playoff races that are going on. Yankees. Who's your daddy? Minnesota. Definitely the Yankees. But we'll look at the 2 Game 5s tomorrow in the National League, and I'll take a peek and see what happened with the Rays and Astros if that hasn't already been played. And we'll also talk about the game the other night between Toronto and Montreal. And how Toronto lost a 4-goal lead or 3-goal lead, and one of them was really stupid. So I'm going to talk to Bladesy about, did you ever see players in the minor leagues of baseball who didn't know the rules? That'll be an interesting discussion. So anyway, thank you so very much for your time. We really love doing this with you. We love having our followers and our subscribers. If you're seeing this for the first time, hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell over there for notifications when we are going live and when we add content to our channel. All right, everybody, have a great day. Enjoy the rest of the day, and we will catch you tomorrow with the Wednesday edition of Dukes Daily. Bye for now.